Yes. So, I would like to start off this Talk of the Month event with a quote. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Let me introduce myself, T.M. Amarnath, Secretary, IIChE Student Chapter Sastra. On behalf of the Student Council, I welcome our chief guest, Ms. Aarthi Thyagarajan, Senior Researcher in Computational Science and Discipline Advisory for Max, Computational and Data Science at Shell, Dr. P.R. Narain, and all my friends present in this talk. A short note on IIChE Talk of the Month. IIChE Student Chapter, which also serve as Schema Initiated Alumni G Meet, where Sastra Chemical Engineering alumni come and share their knowledge and experience on chemistry, physics, biology, chemistry, biology, chemistry, biology, chemistry, biology, chemistry, biology, chemistry,
Yeah, sorry for the interruption, ma'am. Can we wait for him for 1 minute, I guess? Yeah.
Well, the objective behind having this talk is to enable learning as a continuous process even when we are out of college. Now I request our executive member, Ms. Lakshmi Priya Amudan, to give a brief background talk about our chief guest, Ms. Aarthi Thyagarajan. Over to Lakshmi Priya.
Ms. Aarthi Thyagarajan has 13 years of computational research experience in Shell after graduation from the Indian Institute of Science. She brings in computational research experience in various technologies, including integrated gas, materials and corrosion, chemicals, upstream, downstream, and new energy businesses in Shell, involving multifunctional and diverse teams. Currently, she looks after the augmented intelligence related R&D activities for materials, corrosion, and inspection at Shell. Her past roles in Shell were in the field of computational catalysis, multi-phase fluid flow, and computational physics. She has built and managed a network of external collaborations in Asia, USA, Middle East, and Europe. Her interest in including driving new ways to improve technology, products, and process in the energy industry by converting emerging concepts into R&D solutions aligned with business objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi Priya. As a token of gratitude, we would like our Dr. Naren PR to give consent to show the memento to our chief guest.
Yeah. Yes.
Memento will be displayed on the screen and the same will be couriered to you, ma'am.
Thank you, folks. Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Now, I request Ms. Aarthi Tyagarajan to deliver her guest lecture on Digitalization and Computational Science at Shell. Over to Ms. Aarthi Tyagarajan. Ma'am, you can start your presentation now.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Amarnath. And thanks, Naren. I'll wait for Akila to show the presentation. Yeah. Thanks, Akila. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to be speaking to you today about digitalization and computational at Shell with a deep dive into specific topic called augmented intelligence. Please, next slide. Next slide, please. Please allow me to define what I mean by augmented intelligence here. A few years ago, the discussion around big data was mostly a technical one, centered around the emergence of a new generation of tools to collect, process, and analyze massive amounts of data. Many of those technologies are now well understood and also deployed at scale. In parallel, the field of multi-scale modeling and computations have also been going through significant amounts of changes, advances over the past 5 decades, critically aided by advances in high-performance computing. The real power or impact is in merging these two, and that's what we call as augmented intelligence. Next slide, please. Shell has used digital technologies throughout the business for many years, say from subsea robotics in the 1970s to helping in the development of random access memory in 1980s to process seismic data. However, four key developments have come together to cement digital technologies in our daily lives, reduce barriers for new entrants to markets, and precipitated business disruptions. Number one, sensors, data storage, processing cost are really, you know, coming down. They're dropping dramatically. More sophisticated analytics algorithms and artificial intelligence algorithms are becoming an important growth factor for these digital technologies. That's number two. Number three, rapid increase in processing power with the help of hardware increase or advancements. Number four, fast, reliable wireless access to the internet worldwide. As a consequence, the number of data is exponentially growing. Yeah. Next slide, please. Digitalization in Shell. What do we do? Actually, in Shell, we scan the market for emerging technology trends, look for disruptive or transformational technologies, or even startup companies that we can work with. On top of what we develop in-house, the innovation teams, whether it's an in-house product or an external product, when it comes to digitalization, that we are working on, or are at various levels of maturity. Let's say deployment stage. This is a stage where the tool is market ready, standard, and many of the foundational technologies like cloud, mobility, etc. come into this category. Now that there is a second stage called develop, which is also called as proof of concept, and the third one called demonstrate, also called as live pilots. In these two stages, what we do is we are already adding value to the business, but then further opportunities to mature these technologies to enable greater impact to the bottom line is not really already there, and it requires a lot of things to get it into the market level. Now, the last one is discover. This is where many of the scientists are working in Shell. Ideation, it's really at the concept level, and it can be any emerging technology, or it can be any new idea with significant potential future to disrupt or transform the way work we today. So these are the ones called digital transformation, and these will require investment in technologies. More importantly, it requires a business sponsor, for it has to be business opportunity driven rather than a technology push. Yeah. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we have covered what are the various levels of opportunities that we have in the entire value chain. From wells to wheels, Shell is consistently seeing the power of computational science and digitalization. Bits, bytes to generate more barrels for Shell. Now, I want to cite two examples here. One tool is called WellVantage, the other one is called Smart Connect. WellVantage enables best-in-class wells by reducing the capex through increased productivity and rate of penetration of wells. Now, production and reserves have been increasing from better quality well bores and well completions via this technology. WellVantage, it has got a differentiating drilling capability, which includes drilling automation, real-time and remote operations, and analytics to enable further optimization of the entire well delivery from end to end. By centralizing directional drillers, for example, in remote operating centers, the productivity has increased 400%. Now, two drillers can actually operate four rigs instead of one. Up to 30% increase in the rate of penetration across unconventional rig fleet was also achieved by WellVantage digitalization tool. Coming to the second example of Smart Connect, it is a digital platform that gathers data from locally installed sensors and helps to identify performance deviations in, say, 7,500 pieces of equipment across 75 shell assets worldwide in upstream, downstream, and integrated gas. It helps engineers to predict and therefore avoid failures. Leveraging this technology, local teams have effectively collaborated with skilled engineers in central monitoring locations. And this is a great example of really, using the technology to deliver directly to the bottom line. Working together, these teams use trends in pressure and temperature along with the vibration data to detect potential problems, prevent breakdowns, and ensure prompt on-site repairs. Now, let me tell what we do more in the computational science space. Yeah. Next slide, please. In Shell Technology Bangalore, we have a big team of computational science. From predicting chemistry of catalysts and batteries to capturing flow through reactors, pipelines, and rocks, we also develop fundamental physics and chemistry-based computations and advanced machine learning methods to do what we call as delivering insights. That's number one. And the second one is solutions to the Shell businesses. Now, a specific example team in that is called Scientific Image Analysis Team, and this team specializes in applying advanced computational methods to derive augmented insights from technical images and technical data. What we do here is we combine the best of the two world, that is data and the physics-based models. So we collaborate with a variety of researchers in Shell across all domains such as catalyst, petrophysics, and corrosion. Besides extracting value from the scientific images and data, we also develop fluid flow simulators for porous media such as reservoir rocks. Going ahead, I'll deep dive into several examples where we have applied successfully augmented intelligence for asset integrity. Next slide, please. So this is an example, and I would like to point out here, when it comes to industries, more than our technical knowledge, it's our ability to work with people that matters a lot for success. As you see in this slide, though I am presenting, it's a great collaborative efforts with Global Shell. Some of the collaborators' names are from Qatar Shell, and also some of the names are from Shell Bangalore. Despite our geographical distances and and also despite our differences in our domain knowledge, we have been able to come together and be able to talk about what problems we would like to solve for Shell and hence add value for Shell. So it's all about ability to work with people, navigate through problems, and working in the solution mode that helps us to bring up a lot of successes in Shell. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this topic or this project is an example where in 2016 and 17, some of the specialized heat exchangers, also called as syngas effluent cooler, in short SEC coils in Shell gasification process unit, which is also in short called as SDP, suffered severe damages at many locations. The root cause analysis was performed in research labs to identify the problem and mitigation measures. And in the plant, out of 36 SEC coil, two of them were inspected every quarter with microscopy images analysis, which is nothing but a destructive method, and both samples were used. The inspection was achieved without affecting the production. However, the remaining 34 coils were inspected via the non-destructive or the NDT methods. These SEC coils were damaged because of an underlying mechanism called underdeposit corrosion, and these are nothing but solid deposits that are formed from the specific ions in the water. Now, coming to this this project is aimed at developing and deploying a fully automated image analysis tool called layer estimation via image analysis, in short layer. Layer consists of purpose-built image analysis algorithms not available from any external vendors, and currently the thickness of the corrosion layers, the classification such as good or bad state, and the planning of the maintenance of the coil was done manually, and this manual procedure was quite time consuming, incorrect, and it was quite subjective to who was doing that procedure. The main objective of developing this image analysis tool is to not only come up with an automated approach, but objectify this process, remove the subjectivity, make it fully objective, and also provide additional valuable information that are not possible via the manual approach. Now, these include statistical analysis of the corrosion layers, identifying the transition point from good to porous deposit or the bad state of the underlying mechanism called under deposit corrosion. Yeah, in short, UDC. Next slide, please. So historically, there are three different types of under deposit corrosion that have affected the evaporator tubes in high pressure steam generators. One is caustic goughing, second is acid phosphate corrosion, the third is chloride driven underdeposit corrosion. The primary cause of this UDC mechanism is related to the deposition of these porous layers of magnetite particles on the water side or the water surface of the evaporator tubes. The magnetite particles are typically generated by, what is called as flow assisted corrosion. Elsewhere in the system, it could be in the feed water piping or in the economizer, it can be anywhere, yeah. And then they get transported into the steam generator where they deposit onto the heat transfer surfaces. And beneath this layer, a process called weak boiling process leads to a very high concentration of any ionic species that is present in the steam generator water. As the deposit becomes thicker, the degree of concentration beneath the deposit increases and can reach factors as high as 10,000 times the bulk concentration. And at some point, the concentration reaches a critical threshold level and causes the initiation of what we call as underdeposit corrosion. Now, depending upon the initial composition of the steam generated water, this may be of three types mentioned above. In this project, what we are primarily concerned was with the chloride driven mechanism. This is because of several factors that have conspired over the last 20 or 30 years to make this an increasingly prevalent failure mode. And those factors are the drive for high performance. For example, we want to increase flow velocities, increase production in the feed water piping, and hence leading to higher heat fluxes. And the second reason could be the moving away from phosphate based treatment towards all volatile based treatments where we are using very harsh chemicals. And the third is increasing use of air cooled condensers. Now, coming to the first point of high performance expectations, there is a continuous drive towards higher performance, and that will always lead to increase in the velocities and hence generation of more ferrous ions and more magnetic particles that subsequently deposit on the evaporated tubes. At the same time, the maximum heat flux through the evaporated tubes has increased, which increases deposition rates, and hence the entire risk of UDC or the under deposit corrosion also increases. Now, the second point of AVT, all volatile treatment. So, what happens here is industry guidelines have generally moved away from, the more benign phosphate treatments, and now there is a strong steer towards the application of all volatile treatment for systems that have very clean makeup water and are able to strictly control the buildup of impurities in the steam generators. In doing so, this has resulted in the decrease in the ability of the system to buffer the pH and to deal with any contamination that does occur. And so this also unfortunately leads to the risk of UDC. Now, the third point of dry cooling. So concerns about industrial water usage have largely driven a trend towards increased use of air condensed coolers, and these have very large surface area and are prone to flow assisted corrosion during operation and also air intake situation, and easily the oxygen corrosion during downtime etc. can happen. And all of this have led to increased magnetite particles in the steam generator, and so it also leads to increased under deposit corrosion risk. Yeah, next slide please. So this is a workflow of the entire project. As we said, this project is aimed at deployment of this layer estimation via image analysis tool for estimating corrosion from digital images of corroded heat exchangers from our asset. And this is a plant called Pearl GTL where we convert the natural gas, which is predominantly methane, into what we call as usable fuels for our automobiles. Now, in this Pearl GTL plant, coils in the syngas effluent cooler, SEC coil in short, undergo severe corrosion as I explained. Now, out of a total 36, two of them we know that have been inspected via these microscopy images. And what you see in the right and bottom of this slide is a SEM image or the sample that contains bands of different colors, yellow to varying shades of gray, and finally black, right? From bottom to the top of the image. before quantifying the number of layers and the layer thickness, etc., what we do is we separate each layer based on some shared characteristics, and this characteristic is the pixel intensity in combination of color spaces such as RGB and HSV, hue, saturation, etc. So the entire process flow is shown here. How it's a very big plant. At least it's equivalent to 7 or 8 Olympic field size. And this is SEC coil that you see in the second picture in this workflow are few meters in their height. They're so big. And out of these coils, we take some board samples, and from the board samples, we try to come up with the strategies for automatically classifying whether it's the time to clean and prevent any leakage from happening. Because if we don't clean, the critical thickness will be crossed over, and the coil will start leaking because of what I explained, the wick boiling effect. Yeah. Next slide, please. So now algorithm, what we do in this algorithm. So it's an unstructured data, and to represent that SEM image in a generic form, what I show here in the left hand side is the original image that has got 3 different or 4 different types of pixels, right? The first step in grouping pixels with shared characteristics or segmentation is accomplished using a clustering algorithm. As you see clearly in the outcome images or output images, we have just classified the 3 different colors into 3 different clusters. There are various ways to do it. One is called the k-means clustering algorithm. It's a popular method in decomposing raw images into segmented components. The user specify the expected number k, which is the number of clusters in the image, and the algorithm approximately put the pixels into k different clusters such that the variance within the each cluster is minimized. Yeah. However, it has got a drawback. The drawback of this method is the prior knowledge of the number of clusters, and we do have SEC images where we have more than 4 or 5 number of regions, or the number of clusters are different. Therefore, we came up with an approach called incremental clustering algorithm. It's a more general technique to segment image, and it adopts a version of a k cluster k means method, and it was quite successful in thin sections of rocks, but realized that we could also use this for these SEC images. And what it broadly does is pre-processing, feature extraction, clustering, and corrections. So without going into further details of the method, if I have convinced you that we have come up with an automated image which calculates the number of clusters, and also produces an output image with so many number of clusters, and puts them in the right order, and we can also automate the characteristics of the cluster that matches the exact characteristics of the same image of an UDC layer compared to say other components in that image, then we will be able to come up with an automated approach, right? So that's what we did. Next slide, please. And after the successful application of this method, what you see here is an output graph which shows the statistics of the layer. And what I'm not showing is how we use this information in calculating the kinetics, in calculating the critical thickness, and in calculating the maintenance frequency that is proprietary to shell. However, so far whatever I shared gives you the background information or the fundamental approach of calculating the critical thickness and warning the plant by combining this information with the physics-based model, and hence help us in finding out when the out of the 36 SEC coil, when the coil number 1 is going to fail, when the coil number 2 is going to fail, etc., etc. So with that, I will move on to the next topic, and the next topic is much more bigger than this. Again, here it's a big collaboration with various people in Shell. It's a collaboration with corrosion domain people. It's a collaboration with um, process engineers, asset integrity, um, pressure equipment integrity management expertise, um, and also IT folks. Because in this case, in both the cases, actually, not only in this case, in both the cases, it's not the research code that we deliver to our internal customers. it's actually the end user friendly product. Yeah, in that context, I'll explain few technical areas within this second project, and also explain how we move on from research code that works just in our laptop to end user friendly products. Yeah, next slide please. I'm going to briefly narrate about our digital product aimed at reducing asset downtime and improving the efficiency. It's called Virtual Corrosion Engineer, in short VCE. Please allow me to take an analogy familiar to us. We all have heard about autopilots in our flights. The autopilot system relies on a series of flight flow conditions and weather conditions. This data gets ingested into the computer, gets combined with the models, and the computer software then makes the necessary changes to the flight path. In the assets, the unknown events that hit our asset, and an asset is nothing but the entire campus, to put in layman terms, which converts a raw material into an usable product and makes profit for Shell, and also leads to responsible and cleaner energy for the world. Now, what happens in these assets? Many of the equipments are designed for 30 years of lifetime, but then unfortunately they are hit by unknown events. Yeah. So in these assets, the unknown events that hit our asset due to the operating conditions are exactly like these unpredictable weather conditions in an aircraft. And these are known unknown because we have the expert knowledge of these events, but we did not know how to find where they are going to occur in future, which equipment in our energy assets is more severely affected, etc. And when an event occurs, we do the root cause analysis. But we were never able to use that knowledge to prevent the same type of event in future. The root cause analysis conducted so far in shell assets have unraveled there are about 80 different damage mechanisms, even in the corrosion space alone. So I'm not talking about vibration, I'm not talking about other types of mechanical issues. It's only the corrosion domain alone. There are 80 different damage mechanisms identified in our assets. This is where this virtual corrosion engineer, in short VCE, comes in. Here we have predicted upcoming events by fusing engineering science models with the asset operation data, and so augmented intelligence way of solving the problem. So what we have successfully applied here is nothing but learner mindset. We have taken this working philosophy from the autopilot system to VC for asset operations. The motto behind VC is to predict all the time, everywhere in the plant or asset, and for all the mechanisms, all the known damage mechanisms in the asset. And now, what does that mean for the asset? So, if you think in perspective of how it is useful for the asset, by doing this type of work, we are reducing the unplanned downtime. To give some perspectives, the average financial loss per annum is several million dollars in such assets due to this unplanned downtime. Now, addressing how we are delivering this approach and preventing these unplanned downtime, it's not only the technical. Yeah, this is where our great collaboration among Shell Technology Center Amsterdam, computational scientists and material corrosion engineers from Shell Technology Bangalore, technical authorities from Shell Houston and Qatar Shell, including Qatar Shell Research Center, and the IT engineers from SBO Bangalore, data science team from SBO Chennai, thus spanning across multiple organizations and businesses within Shell. As I said, it's always about working, ability to work with the people that matters a lot. Yeah, more than the technical. And it definitely pays well if you know how to convert your technical approach into a big project and work with a lot of people, because if you want to go far you have to go together, right? Only one person cannot deliver everything, say starting from one mechanism to 80 mechanism, and also convert the research code which just runs in the laptop to a end user friendly product. And also, how do you corroborate your computational science methods with the standards that are attested by the technical authorities in corrosion domain? So it really involves a lot of collaboration basically. So in terms of technical details, our approach just simply involves fusion of first principle models or engineering science models with operational and design data, thereby making predictions possible in the world of sparse or limited data. We have been delivering this in two phases. One is we are providing operational inputs based on the proof of concept for each damage mechanism. And the second is we are delivering an end user friendly software that will be automatically and continuously running and hence predicting these upcoming events that could otherwise lead to unplanned downtime. As a tangible delivery for business, we saved this year several millions of dollars for one of the shell assets. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is an example called open recirculating cooling water, the picture that you see. In each asset, there are about few hundreds to thousands of such equipments, so-called heat exchangers. As a chemical engineer, many of you would know it better than me. Heat exchanger can in turn contain tens and thousands of tubes, and majority of which are fabricated from carbon steel. The failure of such tubes by corrosion is a common cause of unexpected plant downtime and lost production. As we know, this is something around 60% of carbon steel tubes in cooling water service will fail well before reaching their design life. The three most likely corrosion mechanisms in these exchanges are microbially induced corrosion, in short called MIC, erosion corrosion, and under deposit corrosion. The probability of occurrence for each mechanism is obviously affected by the quality of water treatment, but also by the operational conditions. Yeah. Moreover, in most of the shell assets, it is considered to to have the water chemistry managed fairly well. So hence we got a lot of clue on how the operational conditions could affect this, and to differentiate between the exchanges and identify those exchanges that are at high risk of failure. What we did in the VC project is to focus more on factors that are unique to each or individual exchanges. So MIC, microbial induced corrosion, is more likely when the flow velocities are low, whereas erosion corrosion is very highly likely when the velocities are high. Under deposit corrosion is more significant when the tube skin temperatures are high, and that's what you see in this graph that is on the right hand side. This is for one example system when you have process side tube process side temperature on the um, left extreme of the graph to the cooling water temperature on the right extreme of the graph. You can see clearly there will be various resistances, or there are several resistors in series that are playing a role. Yeah. Now what we did is these tube skin temperature, which is calculatable by simple engineering science based model by including energy and mass balance. Combining that with the design data and operational data, we can calculate the corrosion rates, and also we can actually point out what is the cause of the degradation of these tubes. Yeah. So in VCE, we reviewed the process data for these key parameters at Pearl and calculated what is called as cumulative exceedance factor for each exchanger to quantify the extent of deviation from design limits over time. For example, whether it is a closed to cooling water type of exchanger or an open recirculating cooling water exchanger type, it will determine the limit of the tube skin temperature and the erosion velocity and the MIC velocity. Similarly, whether it's based on molybdenum chromium alloy, or is it based on carbon steel alloy, it will determine what will be the limiting values for the tube skin temperature and the velocity. So the expert review of these data was also suggested that, based on that, we found out that TST was at the was ranked as the highest risk factor, and so we derived the correlation between the inspection results. Only 5% of our heat exchangers are inspected. Based on the modeling, we calculated at a hourly rate what is the exceedance beyond the limiting skin temperature for each of these each of these exchanges, and hence we calculate the cumulative value and correlated that with the inspection data. Now let's say 5% of the asset was inspected. Now based on the correlation, you can actually calculate the actual corrosion rate for the 95% of the other heat exchanger, which is otherwise called unknown. Yeah. So basically in VCE we converted all the unknown heat exchangers into known heat exchanger, where we were able to pinpoint and say this is failing more than the other, and we were able to give the ranking for the process called SRBI, shell risk based inspection, in short, to prioritize the exchanges for inspection and replacement. Next slide, please. In the interest of time, I'll skip these slides. What we show here is nothing but the basic heat transfer fundamentals that we have used, and basically we calculate the velocities, the heat transfer coefficient, fouling factor, and we calculate the tube skin temperature, and based on the calculation of tube skin temperature and the knowledge of the equipment, and we know the limits for each equipment, we can calculate the exceedance on a live basis, and knowing the historical exceedance and the live exceedance, we can calculate the cumulative exceedance, and then you correlate with respect to the corrosion rate based on the inspected heat exchanges, and based on the correlation further you calculate the corrosion rates for the unknown heat exchanges. Yeah. So that's the summary of how we applied this augmented intelligence for the VC. Sorry, for the heat exchangers in VC. Now, next slide, please. So before ECE, we were not able to rank the risk-based inspection strategy for roughly about 600 exchangers. But after applying this logic, we are not only able to rank them, but also in the bottom graph, what you see is we can now see what other strategies we could deploy. For example, select which one needs to be upgraded, in the sense they need to be upgraded in terms of material from a simple carbon steel to bespoke material of choice. Some of them needed only a repair, some of them needed a replacement but to the same material, and some of them did not require any attention, and hence we were able to defer the cost of replacement, or we were basically able to directly add bottom line value to the business. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this is a second example or a second mechanism in VCE. First, let me please address what is metal dusting. This is a catastrophic form of corrosion affecting iron, low and high alloy steels, specifically nickel or cobalt based alloys exposed to either reducing or highly carburizing gases such as carbon monoxide with carbon activity more than 1 and at elevated temperatures of 400 to 800 degrees Celsius. So this slide is about a famous mechanism called metal dusting. In many of the oil and gas assets, such conditions exist in the systems, for example, such as syngas, which is a combination of carbon monoxide and hydrogen, where you have both the reducing environment as well as you have high concentrations of CO, and it happens to somewhat milder extent in steam methane reformers, where it is in the form of CH4, and it's not going to in easily break into atomic carbon, and hence so it happens at a benign rates in hydrogen manufacturing units, also called HMUs in shell. Now, fundamentally, the deposition of carbon on and within the affected metals and alloys is accompanied by what you call as disintegration of the substrate, and this disintegration will cause wall loss in industrial equipment and ultimately lead to failure of stressed components. The phenomenon of metal dusting, unlike some of the mechanism, have been studied for decades. So what's new here? Even though we were aware of details or fundamental understanding to some extent, when it comes to modeling, we had found a lot of gaps, and it was not fully understood, and several models were proposed, etc. in the past. So we came up with a model which explains the complex design of the equipment, and conforms to the fundamental laws of physics such as mass and energy balance. And we had done some experimental studies for some specific choice of materials used in these specialized heat exchangers, and what you see in the graph is nothing but a metal dusting rate or corrosion rate as a function of metal skin temperature. Again, here it is the skin temperature that is the major cause of the degradation of the metal. So what we came to know is that at a temperature of 450 degrees Celsius, the corrosion rate was consistently about some zero point 0.2 millimeter per year, and a temperature limit was hence enforced to mitigate corrosion. Now, the entire physics-based model was also deployed as a tool so that on a continuous basis, on a hourly basis, it takes into account of various complex factors. For example, addition of sulfur led to led to suppression of methanation, and that suppression of methanation decreased the skin temperature. Also, there was a optimal concentration of sulfur that was required to avoid hot or coke formation, which can otherwise block these coils. So we did this complex modeling. It's kind of a physics-based model with constraints such as optimization techniques. And now we are continuously monitoring what is the severity category of the corrosion rates caused due to the metal dusting mechanism. Yeah. So this is an example again where we combined the understanding, mechanistic understanding behind the degradation of the metal. We found out the cause of the degradation, and we were able to convert that into physics-based models, combine that with the design and operational data, and prevent further loss, and prevent too frequent inspection strategies. We were able to basically optimize the inspection strategy for these type of specialized heat exchangers. Hence, we were able to prove the cost leadership coming out of the technical work. Yeah, so it's ability to work with people and also ability to show the cost leadership aspect. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a mechanism called HTHA in short. Otherwise, it's called high temperature hydrogen attack. It's a degradation of mechanical properties of steel by high temperature reaction of absorbed hydrogen. Please note it's the absorbed, which means it's a volumetric absorption with carbon in the steel. Yeah, how they react with each other. So at elevated temperature, some of the molecular hydrogen in the process environment dissociates into the atomic hydrogen, which can diffuse into the steel. Now, this HTHA, high temperature hydrogen attack of steel, can result in surface decarburization, internal decarburization, fissuring, and cracking. Basically, it affects the granular properties of the material, or several combination of all these factors I explained. Now, this mechanism called HTHA has been encountered in carbon steels mainly, with and without what we call as post weld heat treatment, because after this weld heat treatment, the material structure of the carbon steel becomes slightly toughened and hence less amenable to HTHA. But if it's not post weld heat treated, it is highly susceptible to these kind of attacks. Now, HDHA is challenging to inspect because it's not something that happens every day in our asset life, and it is very catastrophic. So it's good that it doesn't happen every day in our life, but even though it is a rare event, there are a lot of industrial data around this. That's where the collaborative consortium among a lot of industries, including Shell, have helped. The industry standard using empirical curves called Nelson curve. That's what you see here in the left top side of the slide. So this is so-called Nelson curve, which is nothing but the plotting between the temperature of the system and the partial pressure. Please note, it's not the total pressure, but it's the partial pressure of hydrogen in the system. Now, the beauty about Nelson curve is it helps you to come up with some mechanistic approach where you can use the heuristics or the experiential knowledge from various industries in finding out what is a safe zone, what is a completely unsafe zone, and what is an intermediate zone. Yeah, and these are published as API recommended practice, and this is all available in the open world. Since 1940s, not recently, 1940s, the Nelson curve has been revised. It's something that has been constantly updated. and the entire RP recommendation practice standard has been updated with the latest industrial information about this particular mechanism. We used that, we leveraged that, we combined that with our design and operational data, and we came up with the limits called integrity operating limits. And we were able to again apply the same logic called the cumulative exceedance factor, and hence we're able to show, based on our sensor data, which locations are more prone to HTHA attack than others. Again, here it's not the 95% or 98% accuracy of results that matter. It's about the ranking, which otherwise was completely impossible to do. So basically, we were able to rank and show to the assets that some of their locations are not safe, and hence the appropriate preventive steps were taken care. And please, next slide. So this mechanism is called erosion corrosion. Um, there is a synergistic effect of both mechanical erosion and the chemical electrochemical corrosion at the same location, whether it's piping or some reactor tube flows. Wherever these high flow velocities are met, there is a synergistic effect of this mechanical and electrochemical thing. Now, all piping systems are within the scope of this particular topic called erosion corrosion, irrespective of the material or the fluid transport. And the limiting values of flow velocities and the criterion for, the damage, or the criterion for safe or unsafe limit, are obtained from the relevant design engineering practice and API standards. Again, here, with the help of our models, we were able to combine this information and design information and actual operational information, and calculate the cumulative exceedance factors using the criterions and the historical values of the velocities and correlation with the inspection data wherever they are available. So this is another example where the VCE augmented model for erosion corrosion has successfully demonstrated the following through working examples. We were able to screen the entire plant to identify the potential regions where they are susceptible. Secondly, we were able to predict erosion corrosion rates in the presence of relevant inspection data. And we were also able to rank the severity of erosion corrosion in different piping systems within a pre-identified vulnerable unit in the absence of any inspection data. So, it's always about what knowledge and what information doesn't exist, and where we can add value by combining the models with the data. That has been our important focus, so that we can really help these assets. Yeah, next slide please. So this is an interesting mechanism called soil corrosion. I know we are running out of time, so I'll probably leave the last vibration topic and finish only with the VCE and leave out for questions. Our assets have several carbon steel equipment that are contact with soil. Now, these include underground sections of fire hydrants, buried piping, pipelines that carry material and products to and off the plant, and also examples such as floors of storage tanks. These equipment are prone to soil corrosion. If unchecked, it is a big threat, and it can cause unexpected plant downtime and lost production. The soil corrosion prone equipment are protected by providing effective coatings and adequate cathodic protection. Now, it's necessary to monitor the protection levels against soil corrosion in the plants to assess the risk that might arise from this type of mechanism called soil corrosion, right? While we protect, we need to understand how much we protect, hence provide that information for risk-based inspection strategy. Now, what we did in our VC project, Virtual Corrosion Engineer project, is we intended to automate this process by calculating the corrosion rates of equipment using scientific models of soil corrosion and the inspection data available from the plant. One of the few challenges here was the prevalent models for soil corrosion used within Shell, which did not have features to accept the time series of the historical inspection data, which is available for most of the assets. Thus, to take advantage of wealth of inspection data available, it was necessary to create a modified method approach within the framework of VCE, which uses some of the technical logic in the existing tools, but with the added alignment with the subject matter experts. Now, we faced major challenges, and one of them was as simple as how do we extract clean the data, and how do you apply different data cleaning strategy based on the actual domain knowledge. For example, if there is a lack of or missing data in cathodic protection, how do you correct that missing data versus how do you correct the data from a simple stack storage. Yeah, we solve this issue using computational data extraction techniques and also applying the right level of anomaly classification, right kind of anomaly or noise to signal ratio, corrections, data missing data corrections, etc., etc. Additionally, we took advantage of wealth of information extracted, and it became possible to predict a maintenance schedule due date for several transformer rectifiers, which provides a necessary current of for protection against soil corrosion. So what we essentially did was we helped the asset to make the case for replacing or maintaining these transformer rectifiers in time, thereby mitigating unexpected failures and associated lack of protection. um, Not only that, we came up with proper dashboard systems or dashboard visualizations. Hence, it is used on a monthly basis to trigger automated emails to the customers and also prevent the unexpected failure from happening. So, starting from a simple fundamental computational model, combining that with data, all the way we talked about helping the engineers in the asset or the field to receive automated warnings of how the dashboard shows what is going fine and what is not going fine by tracking everything, by tracking the protection levels. So this is an example, and that is a good segue for the next slide. Please, next slide, please. On how we convert our research codes into what we call as end user friendly tools. So whatever runs in our laptop is not the one that is going to automatically run and continuously run and predict failures, right? We have to convert these codes into a robust and a highly scalable solutions, such that um, they not only automatically and continuously run, but they also provide the right strategies. When it comes to the IT perspective, for example, it's not just a if you go on Google today about coronavirus dashboard, and corrosion and coronavirus are analogous. There is very nice web-based dashboard from John Hopkins University. What they have done is they have nicely come up with a strategy of showing both the live status as well as the cumulative status of COVID across the entire world by breaking into continents, countries, states, cities, and further deeper down the line. Similarly, if you take an asset, it has got several areas, and within each area, it has got several units, and within unit, it has got several corrosion loops, which are nothing but a physical attribute. You can combine few equipments in an unit into one corrosion loop, yeah, based on their um, damage mechanisms, for example. So what we have done is we have come up with a similar strategy for showing how in a live manner we can see the status of the entire plant for various damage mechanisms, and five or six of them was presented in this talk. Yeah, so basically it's a research tool converted into an end user friendly product running in a cloud environment, and user getting a web based tool like the John Hopkins coronavirus dashboard. And on top of that, they also have some embedded processes within this digitalization tool, and that's the next slide, please. So what we see here is the various user roles. So it's a platform called Dirac, named after the scientist Dirac. So we have several roles within the assets. Production supervisors are aligned based on the area they are assigned for, and there are say 10 areas within an asset, whereas the technical authority 2 and technical authority TA1 and TA2 in the assets have to take care of the entire plant, and technical authorities are involved in approval of, say, new inspection data upload, and hence that whenever the inspection data is updated, the model correlation or the validation has to be updated in an automated way, but it does involve a semi automation because a TA, technical authority 1 or 2 approval is necessary. Basically, our research codes have been converted into end user friendly tool, embedding the work process that conforms to the current industry standards, actual assets. I think with that, I would like to stop and I would like to skip the third topic in the interest of, um, answering questions and making sure it is useful for the students. Yeah, I'm open to questions now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can stop the recording now. Right. Yeah, Amar, you can stop the recording.
Yes, sir.